What if everything you believe about your mind is incomplete? What if your brain is not the source of consciousness, but the receiver of it? Welcome to Information World. For centuries, humanity has tried to understand where thoughts come from. We point to the brain, a complex organ made of cells, electricity, and chemistry, and we say, this is where you exist. Your memories, emotions, creativity, fears, and dreams are all believed to be generated inside this physical structure. But what if that assumption is wrong? What if the brain does not create consciousness, but instead tunes into it, like a radio tuning into invisible waves? This idea may sound radical, even uncomfortable, yet it has quietly appeared across philosophy, neuroscience, physics, and ancient wisdom for thousands of years. The receiver theory of the brain suggests that consciousness exists independently of the brain, and the brain's role is not to produce awareness, but to filter, shape, and localize it into human experience. To understand this possibility, we first need to question something most people never question at all. When you listen to music on a radio, you don't believe the singer lives inside the radio. When the radio breaks, the music stops, but no one claims the song has been destroyed. We understand that the radio is a receiver, not the source. Yet when brain damage alters personality or memory, we immediately conclude that consciousness itself is damaged or reduced. But what if the brain is more like the radio than the singer? Modern neuroscience has mapped regions of the brain responsible for language, vision, emotion, and movement. We can stimulate specific areas and trigger memories or sensations. This has led many scientists to conclude that consciousness is entirely generated by neural activity. However, mapping correlations is not the same as explaining origin. Just because consciousness changes when the brain changes does not mean the brain creates it. A damaged antenna affects reception, not the broadcast. One of the strongest mysteries in science today is the so-called hard problem of consciousness. We can explain how neurons fire, how chemicals cross synapses, how electrical signals move through networks, but none of this explains why subjective experience exists at all. Why does electrical activity feel like something? Why is there an inner world? No scientific equation has ever produced awareness. We can describe the mechanics of the brain endlessly, yet consciousness itself remains untouched. This gap has led some researchers to consider a different framework. Instead of consciousness emerging from matter, what if matter organizes consciousness? Instead of awareness being produced by the brain, what if the brain limits and focuses a much larger field of consciousness into a personal perspective? This idea is not new. Ancient traditions spoke of consciousness as fundamental. In Hindu philosophy, awareness is primary and the physical world arises within it. In Plato's philosophy, the mind accesses a deeper realm of forms beyond the physical senses. In Islamic and Persian philosophy, consciousness is often described as a light that the body reflects rather than creates. These traditions did not have MRI scanners, yet they wrestled with the same question: why does awareness feel deeper than biology? Interestingly, modern physics has begun to echo similar questions. At the quantum level, reality behaves in ways that defy classical intuition. Particles exist as probabilities until observed. Observation itself seems to play a role in shaping outcomes. Some interpretations suggest consciousness is not just a passive observer, but a participant in reality. While this does not prove the brain is a receiver, it does challenge the idea that consciousness is a simple byproduct of matter. Another strange clue comes from near-death experiences. People whose brains show little to no measurable activity sometimes report vivid, structured, meaningful experiences. They describe clear thinking, memory recall, emotional depth, and even perceptions from outside their bodies. Skeptics argue these are hallucinations, but the clarity and consistency of these reports raise serious questions. If consciousness is produced by the brain, how can it become sharper when the brain is shutting down? There are also cases of hydrocephalus where individuals live normal lives with drastically reduced brain tissue. Some have as little as 10% of what is considered a normal brain volume, yet they function intellectually and emotionally within normal ranges. If consciousness were directly proportional to brain mass, these cases should be impossible. Then there is the placebo effect. Belief alone can produce real physiological changes. Pain disappears, immune responses improve, and symptoms vanish, all without direct physical intervention. This suggests that mind may influence matter more deeply than previously assumed. If consciousness were merely a side effect of brain chemistry, why would belief have such power? From the receiver perspective, the brain acts as a filter. It narrows an infinite or vast consciousness into a manageable stream suitable for survival. Without this filtering, awareness might be overwhelming. Imagine receiving every frequency at once on a radio. You would hear noise, not music. The brain may exist to reduce consciousness, not generate it. This could explain why altered states of consciousness feel expansive. Meditation, deep focus, psychedelics, dreams, and moments of creativity often feel like accessing something beyond the ordinary self. Brain scans show decreased activity in certain regions during these states, not increased. Less brain control, yet more experience. This directly contradicts the idea that more brain activity equals more consciousness. If the brain is a receiver, then individuality may be like a channel. Each human mind tunes into the same underlying field but receives it differently based on biology, culture, memory, and experience. This could explain why humans share fundamental emotions and moral intuitions while expressing them uniquely. It also reframes mental illness. Instead of viewing the mind as broken machinery, we might see some conditions as tuning problems. Depression, anxiety, and dissociation could involve disrupted filtering rather than defective consciousness itself. This perspective does not reject medicine, but it adds a deeper layer to understanding mental health. Artificial intelligence raises another fascinating question. Machines can process information, learn patterns, and simulate conversation, yet there is no evidence they experience awareness. If consciousness arises solely from complexity, then sufficiently advanced machines should become conscious automatically. But if consciousness is something that must be received, not generated, then no amount of processing power alone would produce subjective experience. This idea also touches on free will. If consciousness is fundamental and not entirely produced by physical processes, then human choice may not be fully determined by biology and physics. This does not mean we are unlimited or magical, but it suggests that awareness may have a degree of independence from mechanical causation. Critics of the receiver theory argue that there is no direct evidence of an external consciousness field. But the same can be said for consciousness emerging from neurons. Both are models attempting to explain an unexplained phenomenon. The difference is that the receiver model takes subjective experience seriously instead of trying to reduce it away. Science advances by questioning assumptions. There was a time when space and time were absolute, until relativity changed everything. There was a time when atoms were considered indivisible, until quantum physics shattered that belief. Today, the assumption that the brain creates consciousness may be another idea waiting to be revised. If the brain is a receiver, death may not be the annihilation of consciousness, but the loss of a specific channel. This does not prove an afterlife, but it opens philosophical space where awareness is not dependent on physical survival. For many, this idea is comforting. For others, it is unsettling. But truth is not obligated to match comfort. Ultimately, the receiver theory invites humility. It reminds us that despite our technology, maps, and models, we still do not understand the most intimate thing we experience, being aware. The mind remains the final frontier, not because it is distant, but because it is too close. Perhaps consciousness is not something we possess, but something we participate in. Perhaps the brain is not the origin of the mind, but its instrument. And perhaps understanding this will require not just better machines, but deeper questions. If this perspective is correct, then every moment of awareness is not produced, but received. Every thought is not manufactured, but tuned into. And every human mind is not an isolated island, but a window into something vast, ancient, and still unexplained. Thank you for exploring this idea with me. If you enjoyed this journey into consciousness and reality, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay curious.